The Troubles is a colloquial term for the protracted conflict in Northern Ireland, categorized by a civil war between predominantly Catholic nationalist or Republican factions who sought a united and independent Ireland against predominantly Protestant, Unionist, or Loyalist factions who desired to remain a part of the United Kingdom. This period of intense violence is generally regarded as spanning from the 1960s until the signing of the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, which brought a formal end to hostilities. The roots of the conflict trace back much further, dating as far back as the 17th century. The seeds of this animosity were sown in the province of Ulster. Located in the north of Ireland, historically the most Gaelic of all Irish provinces, Ulster was a region dominated by agriculture. During the Norman invasion of the 12th century, and later the Tudor conquest of Ireland in the 16th century, the native Gaelic population faced significant displacement as English settlers were encouraged to migrate to the region. This displacement fostered a deep sense of unrest among the local Irish population, a tension exacerbated by the 1366 Statutes of Kilkenny. These statutes sought to suppress Irish culture by outlawing intermarriage, the use of the Irish language, Irish music, and traditional Irish games such as hurling, effectively marginalizing the Gaelic way of life. Following the 9 Years' War, which concluded in 1603, Ulster was transformed into a plantation, a deliberate policy of colonization by the British Crown. English and Scottish Protestant settlers were granted land, often at the expense of dispossessed Irish Catholics, leading to a demographic shift where Protestant settlers eventually outnumbered the native Irish. This demographic transformation left a lasting legacy, solidifying Ulster as a stronghold of Unionist sentiment and laying the groundwork for the establishment of Northern Ireland, a region that would remain closely tied to Britain and a persistent focal point of nationalist grievances. The formal establishment of the Irish Republican Army came after the Irish War of Independence in 1919, but its roots can be traced to earlier nationalist organizations, particularly the Irish Volunteers. Founded in 1913, initially, the Irish Volunteers aimed to secure home rule for Ireland within the United Kingdom, granting a degree of self-government. However, the outbreak of World War I in 1914 shifted the priorities of many Irish nationalist leaders who began to focus on complete independence. The Easter Rising of 1916 marked a significant turning point for Ireland. By then, the Irish Volunteers had evolved into a revolutionary force committed to establishing an independent Irish Republic. Although the IRA did not formally exist during the Easter Rising, the organizations that played pivotal roles in the rebellion, including the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Republican Brotherhood, laid the foundation for its emergence. The IRB was instrumental in planning the Rising, and many of its members took on leadership roles within the provisional government that proclaimed Irish independence in 1916. In the aftermath of the Rising, those involved continued to strive for the cause of Irish independence, culminating in the formation of the IRA, which would become a central figure in Ireland's struggle for sovereignty. The Easter Rising was comprised of various groups with fragile alliances formed over a similar mission. Understanding the cast of characters involved in the Easter Rising is imperative in understanding the timeline of the week. The Military Council was responsible for the planning of the Easter Rising, a secret group formed within the Irish Volunteers. The council included key leaders of the Irish Volunteers: James Connolly, the leader of the Irish Citizens Army, Thomas Clarke, and Sean McDermott, many of whom were also members of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. The Irish Republican Brotherhood was a small group of revolutionaries that played a pivotal role in the Easter Rising. Previously labeled the Fenian Movement in the mid-1800s, the IRB was a group dedicated to establishing an independent Ireland, by any means necessary. The IRB was officially formed in Dublin by James Stephens and others as part of a broader movement to resist British rule within Ireland. The IRB sought to achieve its aims through revolution rather than constitutional means. Its membership was secret, and the organization operated clandestinely, typically in association with other Irish nationalist groups. Throughout the 19th century, the IRB participated in several failed uprisings. These failures laid the foundation for future Irish revolutionary activity, particularly through the spread of Republican ideals and the recruitment of new members. By the early 1910s, the IRB had secretly infiltrated key nationalist organizations, including the Irish Volunteers. The IRB's leaders saw the Irish Volunteers as a means to advance their goal of complete independence from Britain. They believed that an armed uprising, rather than political negotiation, was the only way to secure Irish independence. The IRB's role in the Easter Rising was immeasurable. While the Irish Volunteers were the primary military force within the Rising, the IRB's leadership played a crucial role in planning and organizing the rebellion. The organization's members held key positions in the provisional government of the Republic, the body that led the Rising, and it was the IRB that provided much of the strategic direction. Some key figures of the IRB who were involved in the Easter Rising included Thomas Clark, a veteran of previous revolutionary movements. Clark was one of the chief architects of the Rising and played a central role in its planning. He was the first signatory of the Proclamation of Irish Republic and one of the leaders who was executed after the Rising. Clark Pierce, a member of the IRB who became one of the leading figures of the Easter Rising. Pierce is often remembered for his leadership during the Rising and his role in reading the Proclamation of Irish Republic to the people of Dublin at the General Post Office. Though Pierce was primarily associated with the Irish Volunteers, his ideological roots were deeply tied with the IRB's republicanism. James Connolly. Though Connolly led the Irish Citizen Army, he was a close ally of the IRB and supported its goal of a socialist republic. The Irish Volunteers were established in November 1913 as a nationalist response to the formation of the Ulster Volunteer Force, or UVF, which was a unionist militia created to oppose Home Rule for Ireland. The Irish Volunteers aimed to secure the implementation of Home Rule, which would grant Ireland limited self-governance while remaining within the United Kingdom. The organization rapidly expanded, drawing support from other nationalists eager to achieve Irish autonomy. The Irish Citizen Army, or ICA, was founded by James Connolly, a notable socialist and trade union leader, along with Jack White, a former British Army officer. Originally created as a self-defense force for striking workers during the Dublin lockout of 1913, the ICA sought to protect workers from police violence. The lockout, involving over 20,000 workers, was a pivotal struggle for better working conditions, fair wages, and the right to unionize. Early ICA members were predominantly trade unionists, particularly from the Irish Transport and General Workers Union, or ITGWU. After the labor dispute subsided, the ICA temporarily dissolved. However, Connolly revitalized the organization in 1914 after becoming leader of the ITGWU. Comprised largely of union workers, the ICA continued to engage in minor rebellions leading up to the Easter Rising. While Irish forces sought independence, the British Army aimed to maintain control over Ireland, a critical part of the United Kingdom. In doing so, they created the Ulster Volunteer Force, which was formed in 1912. This was a loyalist paramilitary group established to resist the Irish Home Rule Bill. Comprised mainly of Protestant Unionists from Ulster, the UVF was dedicated to keeping Ireland politically united within Britain. Militarized and well-organized, the UVF opposed Home Rule, fearing it would threaten their cultural and political identity. The UVF's influence was evident in the Ulster Covenant, a mass petition against Home Rule signed by over 500,000 people. While the UVF did not directly participate in the Easter Rising, their prior stockpiling of weapons and opposition to Irish nationalism were significant in the broader context of the conflict. The Royal Irish Constabulary, or RIC, was founded in 1822. This served as Ireland's police force under British rule. It became a symbol of British authority, particularly in rural areas where it enforced laws, gathered intelligence, and acted as the first line of defense against rebellion. By 1867, the RIC's role in suppressing uprisings earned it the royal designation. During the Easter Rising, however, the RIC was among the first to respond. In rural areas, they directly engaged rebels, while in Dublin, they coordinated with the British Army to report and manage the escalating situation. The RIC's actions highlighted its pivotal role in maintaining British control during this tumultuous period. In early 1916, amidst the turmoil of World War I, three revolutionary leaders, Tom Clark, Sean McDermott, and James Connolly, crafted a daring plan to seize Dublin from British control. Their objective? Occupy key strategic locations like the General Post Office and St. Stephen's Green to paralyze British authority in the city, igniting a nationwide uprising. With Britain entrenched in an ever-growing global conflict, the Irish Republican Brotherhood and the Irish Citizen Army seized on their opportunity. Representatives of the IRB and ICA were dispatched to Germany for diplomatic support for Irish independence and arms. By April 9th, a German ship, the SS Lebau, disguised as the Norwegian vessel Aud, set sail with 20,000 rifles, 1,000,000 rounds of ammunition, and explosives. British intelligence intercepted word of the mission, and the ship was captured just days before the planned uprising. But this highlights just how far Irish Republicans were willing to go in their fight for independence. At noon on April 24, 1916, over 1,000 Irish Republicans seized control of critical positions across Dublin. St. Stephen's Green, the General Post Office, Boland's Mill, and more locations were all seized. The streets buzzed with tension as Clark Pierce proclaimed the Irish Republic from the steps of the General Post Office. At Dublin Castle, a lone British guard became the first casualty. Shot by James Connolly's men, by the end of the day, 3 more unarmed Dublin police officers would lay dead in the street. Unprepared for the sudden attack, the British scrambled to respond. Tuesday, martial law was declared and General William Lowe took command of the British counteroffensive. Reinforcements poured in. While Irish rebels fortified their positions, St. Stephen's Green became a battleground as British forces secured the Shelbourne Hotel, raining fire on the rebels below. By Wednesday, British troops swarmed the city. Reinforcements arrived by rail and sea, with the Helga, a patrol ship navigating the River Liffey, bombarding rebel strongholds. Ordered to delay British advances, Sean Houston held his ground at the Mendicity Institution for 3 harrowing days, becoming the first to surrender after days of relentless fighting. By Thursday, Dublin was a war zone. Families went without food as gunfire echoed across the city. Trinity College became a British stronghold, and makeshift armored vehicles, Guinness lorries reinforced with iron plates, rumbled through the streets. After 6 brutal days, the rebellion was crushed. The streets ran red with blood, but the rebellion's fire was just beginning to spark. The execution of its leaders sparked a wave of sympathy and anger that would fuel the continued fight for independence. The Irish Volunteers, radicalized by their defeat, evolved into the Irish Republican Army, or the IRA. By 1919, this new organization led the charge in the Irish War of Independence, transforming a failed uprising into a movement that would change the course of history. The Easter Rising, a brief, bloody rebellion, ignited a nation's quest for freedom. Though the rebellion ended in ashes, its spirit lived on, blazing the path towards Irish independence. Thank you so much for watching.